Hey there, blessings to you on this beautiful day. My name is Dantestarshine, and in this video I just want to introduce myself, share a bit more about my backstory, what I'm offering, and what you can find on this channel. So thanks for tuning in, whether it's the first time you're checking my channel out, or if you're a follower you may have heard this before, though I just wanted to kind of post a bit of an update video today. So there's many words that you could use to describe a healer, a channel, spiritual guide, a teacher of some healing arts and modalities. These are all just words in a way. Um, Basically, I'm here to help with this awakening process that's happening, help people learn to get the tools to heal themselves and to awaken their intuition to higher guidance and to psychic gifts and to really just resting into their being, to find spirit at their essence and clear away the negative belief systems and the societal conditioning and everything that blocks us from experiencing self-love, clear intuition, and clarity on our path. So how did I come to this point? Starting way from the beginning, I guess, is the best place to begin. So I was born in Pennsylvania, a place called Reading near Philadelphia. I live sort of partially in the countryside and partially in the city with parents who had divorced from an early age. My parents didn't necessarily play by the conventional rules of society, though they also weren't so inspirited, you could say. I was definitely very intrigued with the idea of spirits, of ghosts, of Ouija boards, of all sorts of magical things as a child. And I did kind of have friends who introduced me to that. I played around with it a little bit, but never really had that strong connection that emerged later. It was kind of like a seed, like I could feel something happening, though it didn't at that time seem completely relevant. Um, and so fast forward a bit, my awakening process really began when I was 18, and it grew progressively in different layers of experience. And for me and many, the awakening does not happen through this magical light burst. It happens through a great deal of suffering. And for me, this was all suffering that I was experiencing through sort of a fractured family that culminated when I was 18. My mother nearly died of a heart attack, and I was not at home, but I kind of had a clairvoyant, like a precognitive moment. We'd say precognitive, not clairvoyant. I didn't see anything, but I felt something was going on, and I rushed home, and all of a sudden the ambulance was there, and from that point forward, there was a lot of conflict that had been ongoing that really escalated in my family. And my stepmother at the time said, you need to do yoga. This is something that can really help you. It was right after I graduated from high school. I started taking my first yoga classes, and it kind of blew me away at first. I had really deep experiences and then kind of forgot about it as I started college and really focused on that and focused on the social life of that, of course. And more things clicked in there. So a lot of people will think that I come already from a very spiritual family for some reason. And my parents definitely did not fit the norms. My father was in rock and roll, rockabilly bands most of my life. My mother went to fashion school. She was very outspoken Aquarian. And so her family was very traditional Pennsylvania Dutch dairy farmers, and my father's father was first generation born Italian immigrants. And so yeah, I had a very interesting life, kind of being exposed to the counterculture. Not that's too much of a hippie word, but the underground, with the rock music and that kind of rebellious attitude. And it also came with the flip side of both my parents having issues with alcohol, and my stepfather also really having deep issues with that as well. And there was big fights in the family. And when you're 18, you're coming of age in a way, but not really there yet. And then it all led me to kind of see that none of them really had it figured out. The way that they manipulated and put me in this very responsible role from an age before I should have been able to do that. But that sent me on the right direction, as for back then I was going to therapists, but I also discovered this plant medicine that really opened so much up for me. And from the first moment, I was kind of always into the magic and occult, but that first experience brought something about for me that I believed in spirituality. That concept really took new life. And all of these ideas that I had been exploring over the past year really came into a broader perspective instantly. And there were more experiences that gave me this sort of experiential feeling of what the Buddhists were talking about when they talk about enlightenment, nirvana. And of course, these were only momentary glimpses, but it enforced in me this longing for spirit, this longing for peace and freedom, and this inner commitment to do the work of yoga, of meditation, of self-study, working with a lot of different ideas around psychology and exploring inner archetypes. And then astrology came, and all of it was kind of there and brewing in me. And there was also this wanderlust, this feeling that movement, seeing new places, was going to bring about something bigger. So after my first year of college, me and my best friend at the time, we'd signed a pact actually, like in the beginning of that school year in October, that in the summer we would go to the Rainbow Gathering on the West Coast, and we would travel, and we put it on paper so that we would hold each other to it. And we went and we did it, and took a bus 3 days across the country. And that was my first experience traveling and going to some powerful sites. I had a strong connection with nature, but it was the first time I heard of vortex sites, energy sites. And I ended up in Sedona, and a lot of synchronicities just kept fueling that trip and brought me to the Rainbow Gathering, where I discovered a yoga practice that I have practiced for some years. I'm laughing because I distanced myself from that yoga practice now, but the Kundalini yoga. There was a lot of other things coming together that solidified my journey with spirit. And I went back to Philadelphia, where I was living at the time, after that, and really tried to start working in sort of political activism, doing canvassing while I was going to school. And I switched to do a religious studies minor, as I was really felt the spiritual calling. And it only took a semester of studying that to see that if I really wanted to have the spiritual experiences, I would never find it in that university setting. So I dropped out of school and did a yoga teacher training, and that allowed for a huge, again, new opening to begin. The rest of the little bit of money that my parents set aside for me to go to school went into the yoga training through some magical little loophole. And I was then, I lost my job not long after the yoga training, was invited to take a Reiki course at the first studio I began to teach yoga at. And Reiki just opened up this world of channeling energy and feeling that I had this healing power in my hands, that we all did, that we could tap into source and spirit a lot more effortlessly than I had thought through yoga and these other shamanic approaches, which are very focused. Reiki added this new effortless layer and allowed me to really feel spirit deeper. And of course, that led me to discover channeled works and a lot of interesting information about Pleiadians for the first time, information about many different things. It all really was flowing, and I was doing like very long hours of yoga every day, and I was kind of, out there. Those first years of my awakening, like I pushed it to the extreme, and the wanderlust was still there, and with information coming at about 2012 and knowing that there was another rainbow gathering happening in Palenque in Mexico, I really spent all the money I had on a flight and on a Reiki training and began selling my things and just praying to manifest the resources for this trip, having no idea what would happen. And sure enough, I left with like a bit less than $1,000 and had no idea what I was getting into. Went to Mexico, and there were Mayan and Aztec shaman and people from all around the world on a spiritual path gathering for this time, as this is a very powerful site where some of the most well-preserved records of the Mayan calendar were found, and it's a very special site. A lot of people refer to it as a unique kind of earth chakra that opens up these deep records in connection to the galactic center and time. And yeah, it really blew me away, and I do go back there sometimes, and every time it's like, oof, an initiation into a whole new step. So I wanted to go all the way south to Peru after that point to work with ayahuasca and other plant medicine, and instead I ended up coming to Guatemala, where I met different shaman who would become my teachers. One person who is working a lot with channeling, with reading the aura, with a lot of psychological approaches, shadow work, a lot of inner processing, group processing, and another person who's doing some of the similar processing work and channeling meditation work, but with cacao. And I came with a bunch of friends from Mexico together to Guatemala. The van broke down for one, so we were kind of stuck. But even without the van breaking down, the first time I saw the lake here, I was just blown away and had this strong feeling like, this is home. I've arrived. It's all okay. And when my friends were about to leave, one of the shaman I was connecting with said to me, don't go with them. You need to stay here. You have a lot of work to do. And that was the moment I was like, okay, this is it. This is the beginning of a new life. And I had figured out how to get some yoga classes going, even some Reiki classes going. My teacher was encouraging me to keep up with it and adding new bits of information and practices all the time. And I really fell in love with my life here and with spirit, and found so much joy and connection even in that first year. And met my first partner, which was another life-changing experience that initiated a journey of traveling around the world. And after about 7 or 8 months here in Guatemala, we arranged to go up to California, and we were going to do some working there. And it was quite a hard trip that taught me a lot and worked through a lot of layers of codependence and self-worth as we do in relationships. And came back here and figured things out and went deeper with the cacao spirit. And he was from Europe, so we went to Europe and experiencing a whole new life, a whole new culture, offering cacao ceremonies in person for the first time there in 2014, and finding my own way of connecting with that medicine. And we, after, over half a year in Europe, decided, a little under half a year, I'm being specific, we did some intuitive dowsing together to decide what we were going to do. And it was this big choice point, and we decided to go to India rather than come back to Guatemala. And we this was when I was learning I was almost putting too much trust in spirit in some way, because going to India was kind of like a nightmare of barely scraping by the whole time, and having all of my things stolen the first day, and more chronic issues with digestion and health escalating in the climate in India, and being manipulated and duped by people a lot, and being in a relationship that wasn't going that easily, and feeling kind of universally pathetic in a very harsh environment that I wasn't used to, all while working to be meditative and enlightened, and seeing really powerful sights, or seeing the amazing expressions of devotion and spirit that are there in India, and also the paradoxical, or rather contradictory, sort of superstitions and suspicions and fear that was also part of the energy there. But it was such a hard experience that from that point forward, it really actually pushed me to have a deeper gratitude for life, and a deeper appreciation, and a deeper focus on self-care. And I started doing a lot of cleansing, fasting, out of the need to just heal my body after what it had been through in India and the years before that. And step back into taking my ceremonies to even bigger levels, reaching more people with them. And it was a beautiful journey. Not long after, my relationship came to an end when I came back here to the lake in the end of 2015, and started doing a lot of deeper self-work. And in working with my teacher here, channeling started to become more of a thing, and I started to see a lot more clairvoyantly and get more messages. I was putting so much focus into doing energy work and taking that to the next level. And I kind of have lived in the years since then, traveling in the summer part of the year through the States or through Europe, or here in Guatemala, expanding my healing offering just by doing the work here. And everywhere I go leading these cacao ceremonies, so much opens up, and it's really a changing journey. And the channeling. So diving deeper into that, it was something that began to happen the more that I would teach energy work or lead groups. I would start to get these messages. And I did this training in IET, Integrated Energy Therapy, that works with channeling angelic energies into different parts of the body. And after that point forward, when I really kind of committed to that, I would get these messages for people, and I would share it during the session if I had permission. And I would just feel how it was like a packet of information that was somehow exactly what they needed to hear. And as I became able to trust that, my guides at one point said, okay, now you're ready. You can speak this voice out loud. And it was in the middle of a personal ceremony I had been doing for myself for some hours. After a lot of work teaching and sharing, I started to hear this voice, and it was like, speak this out loud this time. and it was an angelic voice, and I when I spoke it out loud, I did it in front of a mirror for some reason. That was part of the message. And I think it's because I felt such a strong movement of energy, and there's some like little uncontrollable body twitches that happen for me when I'm channeling or tapping in. Um, and I felt that energy move and got this message from the angelic presence, and was like, this is interesting. I don't really know what this is, but I'm going to roll with it. And when I was connecting with beloved friends, I believe it was on Mount Shasta, was the first time I allowed myself to channel for others. And I was like, hey, I started doing this thing. Do you guys want to listen to the messages that come through? And they were really impressed by it. It really left a deep impression on them, and said that they had this energetic experience of things moving through their body and finding a release and a relief through the process. So it was just their validation that kept me on the trail of continuing to offer this to people, and finding, surely, like with people's questions, the answers the Pleiadians shared were always helpful and brought something that left an impression. And I had been sort of playing with that for maybe a year and a half, and I signed up for that year. I signed up for a couple of retreats. One was a big retreat with some YouTube guru, Bentini Massero, you may have heard of him, that put me in the spotlight because he asked me, brought me up on stage, and I'd never been in front of that many people, and in a viral video. It was kind of crazy. So just having that experience really kind of pushed me to like open to new things and see, I'm capable of a lot more. And another experience came to show me I'm capable of a lot more. It was doing a sound healing training and learning to work closely with sound healing, working with my voice, and having this sort of playground to work with channeling in groups, to work with how I hold space in groups, and just, again, the experience of witnessing the reflection of how people experience my offering really gave me a deeper call that I was ready. And the offerings that I'd been lightly sharing online from that point forward began to take off. The channeling sessions I was doing with people began to take off, and my work went to a whole new level. That year I even led my own retreat, and it was like, at that point I found I was really flying high on spirit in such a beautiful way, and everything seemed to work together so synchronistically and magically, though I was also moving sort of faster than I could keep up with the trail of my own shadows. And yeah, it was like a lot of things that I interpreted as opportunities. I didn't think clearly. I was maybe too trusting with people, a little bit naive, having a bit of that empath, codependent frequency in the past. In 2018 was when I really got the lesson in a really strong way of what happens when I'm not careful with my energy, what happens when I'm not discerning with my energy. And it led to a really nasty relationship, really nasty roommate situation, at the same time that brought me to have a big loss, financially, emotionally, mentally. And this was all right before I moved to Hawaii, which I was planning for a while. And I moved to Hawaii 3 days before the volcano erupted. And it was just this deep earth initiation. Like literally a couple days before, I could feel this energy moving up through my feet, through my whole body, and wondering what is going on here. And that experience threw me into such a whirlwind. It was weeks after it erupted. I was safe, but I was not doing well because of everything that had happened around that was really psychologically challenging, and I didn't know many people there, and I didn't drive, and I was in a lot of ways really desperate and ashamed, and went from being on this like really like high flying spiritual rocket ship to being at my lowest point. And I cut myself really deeply in the ocean on coral in this really like bizarre moment, and I couldn't walk for 2 months. And this was like, the wound that led to the deepest healing. I couldn't walk for 1 month, but I limped for 2, and still have muscle atrophy from that one. But from this point forward, I began to really look deeper at myself and what do I really need as a person, because I was really on this transcendent path of spirituality before coming to think that, oh, you can just use these love and light and these practices and all of this to kind of transcend your humanness. And it brought me to drop a lot deeper into who I am and what do I really need. It brought me on a journey of really exploring my sexuality a lot more, because the relationship issues and years of feeling really alone kind of brought me to question. And yeah, there was a lot happening around that time that also got me to remember my deeper intentions when I set out on this journey was to go to Peru, work with plant medicine. So after getting myself back together and putting my workshops out there in a clearer way, at that point in 2018, I brought myself to Peru, where it was like a dream come true, going deeper into the plant medicine, getting so many messages, really cleansing, purifying so much. And I went after that on quite a different journey to revisit, in a way, the society that I had left, and not the exact same one that I thought that, because it's more progressive, open-minded, even more spiritual in Oregon and Portland, I thought it would be a very different kind of a journey for me. And it was really helpful in connecting with so many beautiful people, opening my heart deeper to a lot of love, and seeing how I could put this out there in a more conventional place, as I have lived in so many vortexes. And then I would offer workshops in Europe, connecting back to my home culture in a way. It was very interesting, and but ultimately I found the life there really challenging, and had to set out on another journey to return after 7 years, 7-year cycles, or every year we're moving through a different chakra. In 7 years, we've completely transformed the being we were from that point 7 years prior. And in this completion of the cycle, I was called to go back to Palenque, journey through Mexico. And it's funny how on this journey, it's like we look back and at versions of ourselves, even the version of myself in that first month in Mexico, like something big shifted in me. And it's like, I look back at myself and I'm like, the way that I was processing things and seeing reality back then, whew, if only I knew what I know now today. And now today we have coronavirus making the world go a little bit crazy. We're going through the most rapid transition in our world. I'm here in Guatemala, and allowing this journey that's been my life to settle in and continue to offer things to people. Wow, so that was a long story about my journey, and what can I really say about it, because that was a lot of the facts of it. It's like I've learned again and again that lessons of discernment, lessons of moving through codependence, and from initially in those early years of my life when my family were was in a lot of conflict with each other, they would always try to pin me against one another. And oh no, they're the alcoholic, no, they're the alcoholic. Like, what? I don't know what's true. I would switch sides at different points, and as the ocean of emotion churned, it would be churned from feeling more connected to that person, to then feeling like I can't trust all of them. And this was one experience for me that from a young age made me have to trust in my inner authority. And so I took, at that point, inner authority from over myself, from people who were in the matrix, who were not awake yet, who weren't on the path yet. But I would continue to seek outside in the spiritual world. Somebody has more answers. Somebody has this piece I'm missing. Someone has that thing I'm missing. And years of that, the first years, there was a lot of good stuff coming. And I came to a point, maybe, 3 years into really seeking, that I would see that, the people teaching me had agendas. They had blind spots that were affecting what they were telling me. They were telling me contradictory information. So what do I discover to be true? And in all this journey, I was also working with Kundalini Yoga, which is a very kind of aggressive practice that when you do it, it awakens your energy powerfully. Like, you have that experience, you have that opening, and you purify a lot, you release a lot. And at the same time, the way that I was kind of receiving these teachings, both from the Kundalini Yoga and both from like this kind of rigid spiritual self-work, like, oh, you want to get better, work on yourself, discipline yourself, work on your shadows, process this. And I felt like for years I was really in this healing trap of having to purify, having to release. And in truth, I still work with a lot of the same practices: yoga, meditation, self-work, channeling, energy work, plant medicine, though there's come to be a much more light attitude that really comes from this soft place in my heart, that I'm doing all of this to nurture myself. And why this works isn't how hard I do it or how much I do it. It's the presence, it's the awareness I bring into the process of doing it. So, we go through so many layers of conditioning. First of all, we learn with our mind, which wasn't that hard for me because I'm in the Mayan astrology, I'm Noch, which is all about the intellect. And so I was always a very intelligent. I learned things much quicker than other people. And then there's this flip side of that does give you a strength in being a teacher. When I came to teach Reiki and yoga and now channeling, having that adept mind was a strength. And it also is a bit of a challenge because we get to a point in the spiritual journey where, well, the whole spiritual journey is about, and we go through many chapters of initiation where we really realize that it's all in the heart knowing. It's not about the mind knowing. It's not about what you know with the mind. It's about how you can move from your heart and from your body, moving from the body first before the mind, right? Because our body has this intuitive innate intelligence. And yeah, it's taken many years to stop trying to go with the head and noticing how the head wants to escape pain from doing a meditation, from doing self-work, from going on a journey. It's like, oh, I'm doing this here to escape from the pain. And when really it works more through dropping deeper into it. And even from the very beginning, that's what I was learning. You drop deeper into it, bring yourself into it, and then you can learn. I also learned the attitude of dropping deeper into what you're feeling in order to get rid of it is not helpful either. And it's like we hear these things, and I'm talking about it because it really takes a journey to really experience it and witness it. And in those later years of the journey, this past 2 years, I would say, have really been another initiation of finding inner authority. Finding inner authority in not necessarily having to consult the spiritual teacher outside, not even looking to a higher up, someone more experienced anymore, and really letting that heart knowing come through as I do get these messages. And I have seen through experience that when I'm clear and in my channel, and when I'm following my heart, and when I offer this to people, it really can shift a lot for others. And now there's this ending of the seeking for the information outside for others, for the validation, and the dropping into a receptive state for myself, which is really, really beautiful. I can't talk about my journey without also talking a bit about the challenge of being gay and living in a very heteronormative world, and in the spiritual community is even more heteronormative and enforces that when they take the idea of the divine masculine and divine feminine out there. So yeah, it has been a great challenge for me, and I think I've done a lot of like bridging very different worlds because of it, going into queer and gay community spaces that work so much differently. And what I've really learned from this journey is, I'm not as simple as a label. Even that term gay doesn't really fully capture me, and there's other connotations with it that I don't fully want people to place on me with a word. I still use the word nonetheless because it's the quickest one that people can come to understand. It's the same sex relationship style, but nonetheless, funny word, funny labels. So I've vacillated a lot between feeling a strong need to identify with this and feeling a need to just go beyond that sense of personal identification into a more collective heart space. And it is that balance between both that I'm dancing with still all the time. And yeah, I feel a lot of love and joy in my life, and recognize there is this longing for a partner still. There is this longing that shapes so much of my experience, and rather than reacting to it and suppressing it anymore, I'm just learning to hold that open space and have the self-love for myself to be my own best partner in the meantime, while being open. And these days I feel in a really good space of love for myself, and really clear in what do I really need. Again, done with this transcending spiritual path, and more into the embracing my humanness, exposing what I'm feeling as it comes up with others, and also channeling that lightness and joy wherever I go. So I'm a Gemini ascendant, Scorpio sun, Taurus moon. Gemini ascendant is the me that, is very easy for me to talk about things like this right now. And a little bit tricky, a little bit playful, bringing joy and lightness wherever I go. That naturally comes with me. And the Scorpio is like, I'm also super deep emotion. I've always been such an emotional and sensitive being, and I expand most into the light when I can honor and share and explore the light and the dark side. And the Scorpio is where this healing gifts comes in. Is I feel like because I have gone through so much, great confusion and loneliness and separation from having so many of these manipulative forces in my life, then feeling like I'm pulled in so many directions, being spiritual community, gay community, this community, that community, this teaching, that teaching, like it stretched me very wide, and showed me how to find that inner knowing rather than listening to the voice outside. And I feel like when I'm holding space for people, I'm never really there's a lot of universal ideas that come through the Pleiadians that are really about living from the heart, following your joy and passion, dismantling negative belief systems, and All of this stuff has become second nature to me in a way, because it comes from not only the Pleiadian Eye channel, but many other guides. When you tune into that thread of what the higher beings working with our planet are saying, there is this essence at its core of rest into the love in your being, allow that to guide you, and sit with what you're feeling, and know that it is a belief system, that it can lead you to discover a belief system that you can unravel yourself. It's the core of what a lot of these beings are saying. I share that with people, though it's having gone through that really intense journey myself of separation, dark night of the soul, longing for spirit but feeling lost, longing for connection but not knowing how to find it, that has brought me to be very connected with myself, and can just hold the space open for other people to find their inner connection, to feel what they're feeling. So with the channeling, what I do is tap into that higher guidance. In my meditations, in my work, I'm always connecting with higher beings, listening to the messages, getting images from them in my dreams, and living with this other presence that I bring through to others, that can inspire and help them learn to make that connection on their own and get information that really changes the way they relate with themselves. And as I hold the space of ceremony and sitting with people, it's really in being as transparent and clear as possible, and holding open a space of love. And what have known and am knowing more all the time is that there's the point to have these answers and this guidance and this intuition and everything, and there's also a point in just holding people as they are. And when we're in our deepest stuff, we just want somebody to be able to sit with us just as we are. And not many people are really able to do that, because not so many people are able to sit with themselves in their depths. And a lot of the spiritual community is not about sitting with yourself in your depths. It's about escaping into some ecstatic experience. And ecstatic experience is beautiful. And the most ecstatic is a complete, vulnerable, transparent experience of allowing all of yourself. And when you can do that, you open up a gift of allowing others to bring their self out, to let all of themselves show, because you can't heal something that you're not revealing. You can't heal something you're simultaneously hiding. You have to show it and own it in order for it to grow and transform. So that's a bit about what I do and what I've learned. Worked with so many different systems of healing that have got me to this point, and now I do enjoy consulting the information out there, but I really feel the integration of the tools within, and experience as I work with people the deep kind of transference, the resonance that goes out, and feel a great love for this life and all that I can offer. And especially in this crazy time we're in now, where people are really losing their sanity to some degree, and we're being challenged to envision and create a new earth. With this coronavirus as part of it, we're all coming to release the belief systems that keep us in the old way and embrace the new. And I just feel this is the time I'm really here for, and I'm excited to see how these sharings are going to manifest deeper with others in the times to come. I've been talking a lot. That's what's brought me to this point. That's what I do. I also do astrology readings. So that's something I've been studying for 9 years about, and it's something I love. I'm deepening that with gene keys. I've been studying Mayan astrology a bit here and there as well. That's also something I offer, so check my website out for info on that, or maybe that's not even on the website. Check my Facebook out, or yeah, Facebook page, Be Bliss. There's some info there if you want to dive into that. And if not, anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. It's been good sharing and putting this out there. I love and bless you and wish you a fantastic day. And yeah, check out the rest of my YouTube channel for channeling videos and some other personal guidance videos. Hit me up with a comment in the question in the comments. But if there's anything specific you want me to talk about in the videos, and stay tuned, subscribe, like, share, and send healing and light to the world every day. I'm doing that, and seeing successful outcomes and beautiful, glorious, easeful transformation for all of us on this day. Blessings and love. Bye for now.